Hello, everybody. Welcome, good afternoon, and welcome to the second session of 2024, Unlocking Success for Small Printers with FSC Certification. My name is Andrew Gustin. I'm the Executive Director of the Sustainable Mail Group. And just to begin, I'd like to cover off on some minor housekeeping details, specifically with regards to the session itself. And how we're going to end up proceeding. We're scheduled to go from 2 to 3 p.m. today. You can ask questions at any point in time during the session, but they'll end up being left open until the end. The event is being recorded and will be posted to the Sustainable Mail Group's YouTube channel, and a link to that has been posted in the chat, as well as a number of other links. We've posted the bios for the people who are presenting, as well as links for how to end up getting in contact with them later on. If you haven't done so already, I recommend that you subscribe to our channel and also click that bell icon when you subscribe so that you don't miss any content. And if you like what you see, please consider joining the Sustainable Mail Group at the link again provided in the chat and become part of the community. It's only through your participation that we can actually end up providing content like this in the future. So before we go into introducing the individual people presenting today, I'd like to kind of go back in time a little bit to get a better understanding as to why we're hosting this session. If you're not aware, last summer we produced a design guide focused on making more environmentally sustainable choices along the design process for direct mail. And one of the elements that we focused on within that design guide has been the advocacy of using certified papers and printing with chain of custody certified printers. And when we actually ended up going to the point of producing that design guide on paper, we ran into a bit of a roadblock in that the printer who we had initially tapped on the shoulder to print the job wasn't certified. And so we had to end up moving it over to another member of that group. And we came to the realization that this was potentially an opportunity to shed some light on what chain of custody ends up being, but also provide some insight as to what the process to become certified ends up being as well. So to start off, maybe I can end up asking our panelists to introduce themselves. Jeff?
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Andrew. Hello and good afternoon, everybody, depending on your time zone. I'm out west, still before noon here. I'd like to, I guess, first of all, just thank everyone for taking the time out of your busy schedule to hear about FSC today and chain of custody. My name is Jeff Welch. I'm the Market Development Manager at FSC Canada, where my primary focus is to grow FSC's presence in Canada through chain of custody certification and also to provide support to our existing network of certified companies. In a prior role with another company, I did do a group certification for a company and got some exposure to FSC a number of years ago. So it was quite interesting to end up here at FSC since last year when I joined the company, and I'm proud to be here and look forward to the webinar.
Anusha?
Thanks, Andrew. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I'm based out of Portland, Oregon, United States. I'm Anusha. I'm part of a nonprofit based here in Portland called Sustainable Northwest. We are an organization that works towards natural resources improvement. And one of our programs is the FSC Group Certification Program. I co-manage this program with a colleague of mine, Jordan Zettel, who unfortunately is not able to attend this meeting. But the two of us run a group certification program for over 120 members across the United States and Canada. Thank you so much for having me as part of this webinar today.
Thanks. So uh, when we get into the substance here, I know that both of you could pull together some slides to kind of help focus the conversation. If you guys are okay with it, I mean, what I'll do is I'll put those slides up, but at the same time, I'd like to level set and maybe end up asking some questions to kind of get us into this. I think, if you've been in the paper business for quite a while, there's quite a deep understanding about what, or for that matter, if you've been involved in any way, shape, or form in terms of fiber sourcing, you have an understanding about what FSC is, what chain of custody ends up being. But I think it would really be beneficial if maybe we level set and go back in time to get an understanding as to what FSC is, what are the roots of FSC, what you guys end up getting involved in, et cetera, et cetera. And Jeff, to that point, I'll put up your slide deck so that everybody can see as we go through. And just tell me, when to advance the page for you. Then, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, and it's just loading. There we go.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Yeah, so we're just going to begin with a little background on the Forest Stewardship Council and what it is. FSC is a global not-for-profit organization dedicated to providing environmentally sound, socially beneficial, and economically prosperous management of the world's forest. FSC was created back in 1993 with a goal to help consumers and businesses identify products from well-managed forests and set standards by which forests are certified. Can advance that. Yes, so from these early beginnings over 30 years ago, FSC has grown into a worldwide organization. There's over 1,200 international voting members from 92 countries. There's over 150 million hectares of forest land that is certified around the world. There's over 54,000 chain of custody certificates that verify sustainable sourcing. And there's over 1,600 companies that hold promotional licenses for FSC. To the next slide, please. Yeah, and so just to kind of break this down to from a Canadian perspective, there's 46 million hectares of forest land certified, FSC certified land in Canada. And there's over 500 chain of custody certificate holders in the country. And just a printing related note, over 150 of those 500 chain of custody certificates are with printing companies in Canada.
Sorry, Jeff, just a quick question here while we're on this, and I mean,
Sure.
this is just kind of one of those Trivial Pursuit facts. For instance, if I'm not mistaken, Canada is the single largest area with FSC certification, if I'm not mistaken, right? The largest proportion of forests in the world are certified in Canada. Is that correct, or is that just something I'm kind of pulling out of my head?
No, that's correct. 46 million of the, it's roughly a third, of the world's forests, FSC certified forests are in Canada. So yes, Canada is a major part of that world certification, for sure.
Thanks.
So yeah, so a little bit about why are forests so important? I think this is trying to connect back to what the purpose of the chain of custody certification is. Because without healthy and resilient forests, we will lose the fight against the climate and biodiversity crisis. Next slide, please. So forests sustain life on Earth, and they must be protected. 31% of the Earth's land area is comprised of forests. 80% of the world's terrestrial species are supported by forests. Every square kilometer of forest may be home to over 1,000 species. And there are 1.6 billion people around the world that depend on forests for their livelihoods. Forests also protect our soils and provide around 75% of the world's accessible fresh water. So you can advance that too. So yeah, so why choose FSC? So I'm just going to go over a couple of the highlights. Onto the next slide, please, Andrew. Yeah, so FSC standards are there to protect the forests. FSC forests meet the most rigorous and trusted standards for sustainable forestry in the world by preventing deforestation and degradation, by fighting the climate and biodiversity crisis, by protecting rare and endangered species, by upholding the rights of Indigenous people and ensuring fair wages and safe working conditions for all. Next slide, please. Yes, so FSC, in addition to the what it provides from a forest management standpoint, and which is all obviously so critical, it's good for business. Chain of custody is good for business. It provides a competitive advantage. The certification signals to consumers that your company is committed to responsible sourcing and manufacturing, and this provides, we feel, a competitive edge. It also provides supply chain transparency. Where certification, provides a clear chain of custody and ensures that the products can be traced back to responsibly managed sources, and thus mitigating the risk of unknowingly using illegal or unsustainable materials. FSC certification also enhances a company's brand reputation by showing its commitment to sustainable and responsible business practices. Next slide, please. So yeah, FSC is trusted by non-government organizations around the world. FSC is uniquely supported by companies or organizations, that is, such as World Wildlife Fund, Canadian Parks and Wilderness Societies, Sierra Club, and the David Suzuki Foundation, as well as more. It is trusted by consumers throughout the world, with 46% of global consumers recognizing the FSC logo. When compared to other organizations, consumers have the highest confidence in FSC, which is significantly higher than their trust in business in general, and or their local government. It is trusted by the private sector. FSC is the preferred certification scheme for companies and the most used by members of the Fortune 500. So yeah, we're going to move on to talk a little bit about how FSC works. If you can go to the next slide. So chain of custody certification is how FSC verifies that forest-based materials produced according to our rigorous standards are credibly used along the product's path from the forest to becoming finished goods. And so an example of who is eligible for chain of custody, these are companies that are involved in the transformation, processing, or manufacturing or distribution of a forest-based product. And they must be FSC certified in order to apply an FSC label to their products and or sell those products with an FSC claim. Some examples would be pulp mills, paper converters, different packaging companies, corrugated packaging companies, etc. And of course, what we're here today to talk about, printing companies and print brokers that take legal possession of the product. So the next slide, we want to talk a little bit about the two different ways to obtain certification. One is as a single certificate for one organization. And the second is as part of a group certification for smaller companies. Next slide, please. So before we talk about group certification, I'd just like to cover the steps for obtaining a single certificate for one organization. Now, in order to maintain the integrity of the standard, only FSC-approved third-party certifying companies can conduct assessments for FSC certification. These companies are referred to as certification bodies. On our website, there is a landing page called Certification Bodies, if you look under certification. And there you'll find a list of 11 companies that are established by FSC to actually do the certifications. So the steps involved for a company such as yourself would be to contact one or several of the third-party certification bodies, and they will provide a cost estimate and timeline. for you. Step 2 would be once you've decided which certification body you'd like to work with, you'd fill out an application form and sign an agreement with the certification body. And step 3, there would be a complete on-site certification audit where your selected certification body will assess your company's qualifications for certification. And following that would be step 4, where the data collected during the audit would be captured in an audit report. And the certification body would then make a certification decision based on the information in the report. And then finally, assuming your certification is approved, the certification body would conduct annual surveillance audits to verify your continued compliance with FSC certification requirements. So that's how the process would work, after becoming certified with an annual audit. These certificates are valid for 5 years in this case. Next slide, please. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about group certification before we turn it over to Anusha. So group certification was developed to help smaller enterprises achieve FSC certification by reducing the costs and administrative requirements for certification. So small businesses can get certified under one group certificate in this case. A certification body audits a sample of members and carries out a risk assessment of the entire group scheme rather than auditing each individual business. A group manager ensures that all group members are using systems that satisfy the FSC requirements. Now, as far as eligibility for group certification, currently the eligibility is that you're to have no more than 15 employees, including full-time, part-time, and seasonal staff, or have no more than 25 employees and an annual revenue of under 1 million US or approximately 1.35 million Canadian. There are 2 group certifications available in Canada. One is Group Lignum, and the other is Sustainable Northwest Canada, which Anusha is kind enough to be with us here today to tell us a little bit more about group certification. So so that concludes sort of the overview from FSC's perspective on chain of custody and background about the company and the organization. And I'll turn it back to Andrew.
Thanks. I've got a couple of questions, but I think I'd want to end up leaving them till the end because they may end up being covered by Anusha, or for that matter, they may come from the attendees. So, Anusha, you, as Jeff mentioned, you're one of 2 organizations that are capable of providing group certifications in Canada. The other one, I believe, is located in Montreal. And although we haven't provided a link to them in the chat here, I'm sure we'll actually end up putting that in the information once we post this video onto our YouTube channel. Can you kind of walk us through the step-by-step process as to, Jeff's established who can potentially end up applying for it, but then maybe we can get into, the how of this process, and I'll just put the slide back up here. So,
Sure.
yep, let me just get to the right page. We'll just scan through that quickly. Hopefully no one's going to get dizzy. There we go. Everybody see that?
Yes, I think we can see that. All right, thank you so much. Before I dive into the group certification program that we run, I thought I would like to introduce Sustainable Northwest and the group program at our organization. All of this, Sustainable Northwest as a nonprofit, I've already mentioned that we are into natural resources, and we work in a variety of spaces, including clean energy, regenerative ranching, forestry, and the team that I belong to, it's called the Green Markets team. And basically, we are here to support for the forest stewardship, and we believe that this can be done by encouraging the market that ultimately buys the product. We also believe that people are motivated by the things that they can drive value from. And in fact, Sustainable Northwest was one of the very first solid wood group certification in the country that was established in 2003. And there's a short story behind this. The story goes that in 2003, we had a program called Healthy Forests and Healthy Communications that was run by our forest team, where we created this brand and we tried to help small producers of wood products, small family, forest family owners, sawmills, fabricators, so on and so forth. And in 1993, when FSC started in North America, some of these members reached out to us and they said that they would like to be part of FSC, but there was a system barrier, there was a cost barrier. They needed some kind of support from someone to set up operational procedure. And that is when Sustainable Northwest sort of decided that it would be worthwhile to have a group of people aggregate in the same way that we are helping these small forest owners aggregate for. Back then, we ran a carbon market. So we were recognizing that there was a way in which we could help people access wood markets by aggregating smaller businesses into this group certification. And that's how the whole of this wood group certification began. Next slide, please. And so in 2003, when we began, apparently we were just 6 members strong, but and back then we charged a very nominal amount because of the cost barrier that all of our members were, back then they were not our members, but then they were all partners that we worked with. And so we started off by charging a very small nominal fee, but eventually we wanted this program to be financially self-sufficient, and we did not want to depend on foundational grants and such. And that is when we started growing this program, with more members and fee for service money increasing. And today we are at a strong 128 members across United States and Canada. And in fact, we already have 4 printer members in Canada. Next slide, please. So getting into the details of how do you get certified, what is the process look like, what are the things that you'd require, and what services we can offer. The eligibility bit, Jeff has already mentioned. We're more than happy to work with anybody in the print business with about 15 or less staff members. And I would like to begin by mentioning that our cost is anywhere between $1,000 USD to 3,500 of annual fee, but this depends on the annual revenue of the company, along with a one-time assessment fee. So as of now, we've had a lot of our current members reach out to us initially. They are asking us for the chain of custody certification. They are reaching out to us either through emails or phone calls. So once we have these people reach out to us, we schedule a phone call or a Zoom call, trying to get to know the details of the business, which is followed up with an initial visit to set up what we call the procedures, which is basically, we visit the facility, we visit you guys and collect a lot of information, which is important to set up a couple of documentation, which doesn't take too much time. And they're all very simple procedures. We call them the product list, the supplier list, written procedures, volume summary, and member documents. These are the core documents that we help set up during the initial visit. Basically, we talk through what are your products. Are you into digital printing? Are you doing any other kind of products? So basically making a list of all the products, because FSC ultimately has a product code. And so we capture that. We also capture what is known as a supplier list. Who are your suppliers? Where are they based out of? We try to see if these suppliers make sure that these suppliers are FSC certified. There are a bunch of suppliers, in Canada, in the United States, and we've had our members sourcing their raw materials from Mexico, from China, from Indonesia, all over the world. So we make sure that these suppliers are also FSC certified. Other than that, we have the written procedures, which basically is like a guide to the member about the whole group program. So we help set that up. And then we also collect the volume summary, which is, again, basically make a note of what is the total revenue, what kind of products are you dealing with, how much has been bought, how much has been sold over the year. So we help set this particular document. And other than that, we have a couple of agreements between Sustainable Northwest and the member, and then trying to make sure that the core labor policies are supported. Things like no child labor, a bunch of labor procedures that most of the organizations in general do follow. So we try to make sure that those labor standards and labor procedures are in place. So this is how we start off with the initial process, with an initial visit and setting up all of these different documentations. And then Jeff did mention about the certification bodies. So our certification body is the Soil Association, which you can see on the slide. So we send all of this information that we collect during the initial process to Soil Association, who then approve and grant the certification. And with that, the member is good to go with any FSC jobs that you guys might receive over the year. And as part of the other requirements, usually there's an annual audit or an annual visit. Sustainable Northwest believes in calling this a visit more than an audit, because we are really looking forward to building relationships rather than cracking the whip, as we say. So we like to visit our members annually, try to make sure that everything is going all right. This is when we will ask you for all of the documentations that were set up during the initial visit, making sure that these have been updated, all the records are properly sort of stored and things like that. Other than the annual visit, at times we also have the Soil Association pick and choose a couple of our members. It could be, let's say, for example, if we have 10 members, they might randomly choose about 3 or 4 members for an annual visit, which is pretty much the same. It'll just be another auditor from the Soil Association who's more or less following the similar procedure that we might do during an annual visit. And in any given year, let's say Sustainable Northwest has already audited or visited you, and then the Soil Association also chooses to audit the member, then they are exempt from the audit the following year. So these are all the basic requirements, basic procedures of how to become a member, how to get FSC certified and start off with an FSC job. Other than this, Sustainable Northwest as an organization, we are always open to providing technical support or any kind of support throughout the year. And that is what is covered in the annual fee, wherein we are more than happy to help you with any kind of questions that you might have about FSC, the chain of custody certification. In fact, even the trademark approvals. If you would like to have the FSC trademark on your products, on your website, in your emails, any kind of packaging, we're happy to help you with that process and procedure as well, which is fairly simple. And again, this is something that is sort of approved by the Soil Association. So pardon me, I was on a rant here, but it's a fairly simple process. And we've had a couple of print members, both here in Canada and the US, who've gotten recently FSC certified. And I'm happy to discuss more about that if you have any questions. Back to you, Andrew.
Thank you. That was pretty thorough. We've got a number of questions that are coming on. I'm just going to stop sharing this slide for the moment. First one, and I knew that this was going to come up because I think all of us had ended up discussing this before, and it comes from Chantal Morissette. And the question is, are you planning to change the group eligibility size? The $1.3 million number seems to be a very low number. So I may be setting you up here, but can you
No,
answer that?
yes, absolutely. I'm glad the question came up because I did intend to mention that as I went through it and just failed to. But so yeah, we completely agree with that assessment as far as it feeling too low, and we believe it is too low. We have FSC Canada is in the process of we put together a proposal several months back, which is really it's just being reviewed right now. So we're hopeful. It hasn't been approved at this point from FSC International, but we're trying to be hopefully optimistic that we can change this eligibility so it can be more inclusive than it is. So we understand that it's just it does need to be adjusted, and we hope to have something to report on at some point during 2024.
Thanks. The other question comes from, sorry, just get that Q&A back up here. Sorry, let me get rid of this one. What happened from 2012 for the number of group members to have increased?
Good question. Thank you so much. And that is something that I had for the organization as well. I'm definitely not working at Sustainable Northwest from 2012. So I believe that that was the point in which Sustainable Northwest chose to sort of grow this program. And prior to that, we were running the group certification program based on other foundational grants and funding and so on and so forth. But that is when we decided to sort of make this more self-sufficient, and we also wanted to grow more as a program. And I believe that's the reason for the big increase in the number that you see. And we're definitely interested in growing more as of today as well.
So just to that point, and maybe perhaps a small minor segue, the group certification numbers that you refer to and the group certifications, are they segregated based on the type of business that there may end up being, or does the group certification end up covering, for instance, printers? It could cover, I mean, a paper manufacturer, I can't imagine anybody being that small necessarily, but it could be. And would it, for instance, also potentially cover um, a woodlot, right? I mean, could you end up, falling into this group certification if you ended up growing, timber, and that would count for the overall numbers then. Is that correct?
That's true. Our members, have different kinds of products, and it's not just paper or printers. It could be wood. It could be cabinetry. We also have members who are manufacturing, single-use coffee cups. So a wide range of members that we have out there, and that's the result of those numbers.
Oh, that's neat. Jeff, and I know this is like totally a segue out in left field, but I mean, you and I ended up talking about this before. FSC has just gotten into, and this is something that got communicated, certifying tires in F1, right? I mean, like you'll see an FSC logo on the sidewall of those F1 tires. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Just starting a couple weeks back, Pirelli tires are FSC certified. The raw material from rubber trees. So I've certainly learned a lot in my relatively short time with FSC, and that was sort of a bit of an eye opener. But yeah, there's rubber trees and how that material is sourced and tapped out of the tree, just like maple syrup is. It's just another example of forests, and they have to be managed in a sustainable way, and it's a really big endorsement for FSC. brings a lot of attention to FSC and the brand and the logo, because so many people are watching F1 these days. So yeah.
So if you don't mind, I got a couple of questions because I know that from personal experience that there is some effort involved in terms of documentation, maintaining that, and all of that. Um, you talk about written procedures, and Anusha, you ended up alluding to the possibility with regards to helping out with some of those procedures and documenting some of that. So if somebody is starting fresh, has never ended up doing this before, and they wanted to go down this path, would you folks be able to help them document those procedures and perhaps build things like checklists for their process? And would that be part of the costs that they would end up incurring and signing up in this whole thing?
Absolutely, everything. So somebody might call me up tomorrow after this webinar and say, "Hey, Anusha, I just want to get FSC certified and I've no clue where to begin." We're more than happy to walk them through the process.
Okay. And then there's beyond just the writing down the processes and starting out with this whole thing. Is the cost of the audit included in the cost of getting a certifying body to either do a desk audit, in which case they would do this over a video conference or over the telephone, or an actual physical site audit? Would that be included in the costs incurred in this whole process, or is that something that would be separate?
No, this is all included in the annual fee.
Right, right, right. Um, and then the last question I end up having references the trademark approval. And I know that this is something that not we, but the printer who printed our design guide had to go through, right? But the premise then is that whenever you end up utilizing an FSC logo on a printed document, or you use it in some marketing collateral, for instance, that you would end up producing, that has to go back to who for sign off? And typically how long does it end up taking? Who signs off? How much time would they typically put aside to go through that process?
Mhm. It's a fairly simple process, and the timeline, I would say, at most would be about a week's time to get the permission to use these logos. And they're very, very simple. So we would be helping our members out with anybody who would want to use the logo either on the product packaging, their website. They can reach out to us. We will provide them with login access to a portal wherein they could go in there, look at all the logos that are available, and download the ones that they would like to use on their packaging or whatever it is. So they will have to send those logos, and maybe make a mock-up of how the logo would look on their product or on the packaging, and send it across to us. We will take a look at it and see if it's in compliant with the trademark standards. If not, again, we're happy to work with the member, either through phone calls or emails, guide them about how these logos need to be used. And once we feel that the markup is good and it's in good shape, we reach out to the Soil Association, who then approve, and of course, send it out to FSC. And usually we receive the approval in a day or two at most, if everything is in good shape. There have been cases where I've heard back the very next day, and the member is good to go with the logo usage.
Perfect. So I think that's just something people should likely end up incorporating into that then. So I don't know if we've got any more questions. I mean, we received a handful of those through this session. That was great. If we were to advise uh right now, anybody who wants to go through the process, and Anusha, you just sent me a message here. Maybe you want to allude to that. What would be the next steps? Who would they end up contacting? Would it be the folks at FSC, or would it be you folks? And keeping in mind, right, that at the moment, like this group certification has some constraints, and so how would they go about defining who the first point of contact should end up being?
They could totally contact me, and I put my email address in the chat. So if they feel that they match up to the eligibility that Jeff brought up earlier on in this webinar, they can definitely contact me, and I'm happy to post my email ID again. Or they could reach out to my colleague, and I'm going to type in both of our email addresses.
Perfect.
Chat.
And I've shared that with everybody as well. So,
Okay.
do we have any more questions from the? Oh, hang on. We do have one just came in here. Let me see that. Um, so the question is, can the public access the list of companies that are FSC certified? Reason for the question, working with supplier, getting multiple sources for raw material. They indicate that some of their vendors are certified and some are not. Could we check that? So, qu question, and I'm assuming here is maybe to extend this out to the biggest possible scope. The question relates to paper suppliers, possibly, printers, possibly. I hope that that's what the question ends up being, because then that should cover both the list of materials, as well as the people who are able to print on those materials, right? So would they be able to get that from the FSC Canada site?
Yes, I mean it's actually a worldwide the worldwide site for FSC. So you can go to that site, and I can get that posted into the chat. And at that on that location, you can put a company name in, and you can do a search. And it'll show whether their status is a valid certificate, or if it's expired or anything like that. So um, anybody who's a current certification holder will show up on that website.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you brought that up, because that not only covers, for instance, paper suppliers, but in order to be able to maintain that chain of custody, right, you've got to be able to ensure that, right, not only the paper supplier is certified, but also the source that you purchase that paper from is certified, as well as the printer. So, should you have any thoughts or concerns, you will be able to effectively end up tracing it throughout that entire chain of custody. I mean, not to overuse that term, but that's key behind that, right? Um, great question. Um, so I think we pretty well covered all of the questions and all of the materials. As Anusha, you've indicated, if there's anybody who's got any further questions, they can reach out to you. Your email address has been provided in the chat. I'll also make sure to post that and your contact details in the description when we post it to our YouTube channel. Is there anything you guys want to end up saying as closing comments before I kind of get this into the outro?
Just to once again thank everybody for taking the time out today. Certainly, we're available. I'm available if you have any questions. We'd be more than happy to talk to you and help you along the way. I'd like to thank Andrew for his efforts in putting this together. It's much appreciated, Andrew, and for our partner, Sustainable Northwest, Anusha. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. So, and just to that point, Jeff, I know that we had ended up talking about potentially, how the standard ends up evolving. We'll make sure that we communicate, any changes that may end up occurring in the next little while, and evolution, either through our mail, through our mailing lists, through our LinkedIn channels, or for that matter, for our newsletter. So stay tuned for that. Just to update everybody, I know I've repeated this a number of times, but the session's been recorded. If you've missed anything, or if you want to review any of the answers, you can always go to that. Our YouTube channel has been posted in the chat, and you will all be receiving a reminder that that video has been posted. Again, if you've enjoyed the event, please share that video with your colleagues. And to stay on top of our content, please subscribe to our channel. Also, and finally, the most important piece of that is also just the point around joining SMG. It's, through that support and through that membership, not only does it help kind of decide the direction that we end up taking, what's important to our members, but it also helps support us in being able to provide this. Stay tuned. We'll be posting invitations for more content to our next event soon. Thank you very much for having participated in all of this, and have yourselves a great afternoon, folks.